On the massive warship Varkon Spear, the largest vessel in the Galactic Defense Fleet, a young human named Eli Kane walked through towering corridors filled with alien soldiers from every corner of the galaxy, reptilian warriors with scales that shimmered like molten metal insectoid troopers whose many eyes tracked his every move, and armored cyborgs whose heavy steps made the deck plates tremble. Whispers followed him wherever he went, voices dripping with doubt and mockery, saying things like a human in our army. How long until he breaks, and a fragile creature from Earth won't survive a week? Eli kept his eyes forward, gripping the strap of his training bag so tightly that his knuckles whitened, not from fear, but from something deeper, something he would not allow to surface. Yet a massive alien twice his size stepped into his path, knocking him hard enough to make him drop the bag and scatter his training gear across the polished floor. The alien grinned with rows of sharp teeth, while others nearby laughed, a low rumble that echoed through the hall. Eli crouched to pick up the gear, his face calm, but his fingers curling into fists for the briefest moment, as if holding back a force too dangerous to reveal the warship. Was on constant alert patrolling the edges of contested space, and Eli had been assigned to the 9th Division, the most ruthless and feared unit in the fleet. Its commander Zorak, a towering warrior with obsidian armor and a deep scar running across. His reptilian face looked Eli over on the first day and said, "Humans are fragile. You will die in your first battle." The other recruits were veterans of countless wars, each wearing their scars like medals. Eli was the only one without a single mark. Yet during the first combat simulation, he moved with a quiet efficiency, keeping his head down as the others pushed and tripped him, knocking him to the ground every time he tried to get up. One insectoid warrior hissed close to his ear, "Slow reflexes. Little earthling." But in one brief exchange, the simulation sensors glitched, showing Eli moving faster than the system could track, so fast it almost seemed he had teleported. Nobody noticed the anomaly, except the ship's AI, which flagged it in. Its hidden data logs days passed, and the bullying intensified. Zorak assigned him the most degrading tasks: cleaning plasma weapon bays, scrubbing armor plating, hauling heavy crates through freezing cargo decks each time Eli obeyed without complaint. His expression unreadable, but deep inside his mind he replayed his father's last words before he left Earth. "The galaxy does not fear us yet, but one day it will. And I think you might be the reason why one evening during a grueling zero-gravity, drill an energy blast from a plasma cannon shot straight toward Eli. Its barrel supposedly malfunctioning, the force of the blast should have burned through him instantly, but somehow his body moved just enough in the blink of an eye, the beam missing him by centimeters. The aliens laughed, thinking it was luck. But Eli knew better. He had reacted faster than thought itself. Later that night, alone in his quarters with the dim light of distant stars flickering through the viewport, Eli sat in silence, staring at his hands when his console suddenly flickered to life without him touching it. The ship's AI spoke in a voice low and urgent. "Your strength is not human. They must never find out, not yet," before he could respond. The screen went dark, again leaving him alone with the hum of the engines and the cold weight of a secret he barely understood. Training on the Varkon Spear grew harsher with each passing day, the alien recruits pushing themselves to extremes in preparation for real combat. But for Eli Kane, it was more than just drills. It was survival. Every exercise became another opportunity for the squad to break him and prove a human had no place among them. During live fire training, one reptilian warrior intentionally adjusted the targeting drones so they would swarm Eli's position, overwhelming him with rapid energy blasts. He moved with controlled effort, making it look like he was barely keeping up, while in truth every shot missed him by inches because he adjusted faster than the drones could track. Commander Zorak watched with narrowed eyes, clearly wondering if this human's luck was unnatural. After the drill, Zorak assigned Eli to a full day of maintenance duty alone in the weapons bay with the heavy smell of oil and ion charge in the air. Eli repaired energy rifles, cleaned armor plating, and replaced power cores. His hands steady, his mind focused. He knew they were testing him, watching to see if frustration or exhaustion would break his composure, but each insult and order rolled off him like water off glass. The others couldn't understand his patience. They thought it was weakness. Zorak, in particular, seemed to enjoy pushing him to the edge. But the truth was, Eli was waiting. For something, though, he wasn't sure what that something was. One evening in the mess hall, a large insectoid named Crix decided to take the bullying further. He approached Eli carrying a tray of steaming nutrient paste and tipped it slowly over. His uniform, the paste burned hot against Eli's skin, but he didn't flinch. He simply removed the uniform jacket, folded it, and placed it on the table, then sat back down as if nothing had happened. The mess hall went silent for a moment before bursting into laughter. Crix hissed, amused but unsettled by the lack of reaction. That night, the ship's AI contacted Eli again, appearing as shifting lines of light on his console. You are being pushed to provoke a reaction if they see what you are. Before the right moment, you will lose all control of your future. Eli asked quietly, "What am I?" But the AI's voice seemed almost cautious. Your biology does not match human records. Your DNA has sequences that predate recorded history further. Scans are blocked by a security protocol older than this fleet. In the following days, rumors spread through the division. Some said Eli was a spy from another faction. Others whispered he was genetically altered by Earth's secret programs. Commander Zorak decided to put the rumors to rest with a challenge during close-quarters combat drills. He ordered Eli to face 3 alien warriors at once, the reptilian brute from the first day, the insectoid Crix, and a heavily armored cyborg named Marek. The fight began with Eli dodging their heavy blows, taking falls, letting himself be pinned against the wall as if outmatched. But then Crix made a mistake in his taunting. He grabbed a young human engineer who had been observing from the sidelines, lifting her into the air and threatening to drop her onto the hard deck without warning. Something inside. Eli shifted his vision, sharpened, his hearing expanded, and for a moment the world slowed. The cyborg's armor creaked, the reptilian's claws scraped against the floor, and the insectoid's mandibles clicked in slow motion. Eli moved in a blur, his hand gripping Crix's arm with impossible strength, forcing him to release the engineer before any of the other two could react. Eli had stepped. Between them, his stance wide, his eyes flashing with an unnatural pale light. It was over in seconds. Eli stepped back, breathing evenly as if nothing had happened. The squad stared at him, unsure of what they had just seen. Zorak's expression was unreadable, but his gaze lingered on Eli with something between suspicion and respect. Without a word, Eli left the training hall, the whispers following him through the corridors louder than ever, and in the privacy of his quarters, he finally admitted to himself that whatever he was, it was no longer just a secret. It was a time bomb waiting for the right moment to explode. The alarms on the Varkon spear blared with a deep metallic hum, shaking the corridors and pulling every soldier from their bunks. A Vorak swarm attack, warning the insectoid army was closing in on a mining colony at the edge of neutral space, and the fleet was mobilizing immediately. Eli Kane strapped into his armor, following the 9th Division toward the drop bays. The hangar was alive with activity plasma rifles being loaded, shield generators, charging pilots, sprinting to their fighters. Commander Zorak's voice cut through the chaos, announcing that the Vorak had breached orbital defenses and ground combat would be unavoidable. As the dropship doors closed, the reptilian leader glanced at Eli and said, "Try to keep up, human." His tone dripping with challenge. When they landed on the colony world, the air was thick with dust and static electricity. The ground trembled under the advance of the Vorak, countless insectoid shapes moving in coordinated waves, their armored exoskeletons. Glinting under the light of 2 suns, the 9th Division moved quickly, taking defensive positions in a narrow canyon that led to the main mining facility. Eli followed orders without hesitation, but he could feel the tension in the air and the glances. From the aliens around him, they had deliberately placed him in the rear with minimal cover. Knowing the Vorak would likely flank from that direction, the first wave hit with terrifying speed, plasma bolts cutting through the air, Vorak drones leaping. Over the canyon walls and swarming the defensive line, the alien squad fought hard, their weapons roaring, but the swarm's sheer numbers began to push them back. Eli held position using controlled bursts from his rifle, making it appear as though he was struggling to maintain accuracy. In truth, he was tracking every movement with precision, his body itching to move faster than he was allowing. Then it happened a breach in the left flank. The Vorak poured through the gap, cutting off Eli from the rest of the squad. He could hear their voices over comms saying, "Leave him, he won't make it." They moved to retreat, thinking the human's death was inevitable as the swarm closed in. Something in Eli's chest tightened. The world seemed to slow every Vorak leap. Every claw, swing, every snapping mandible moved at a crawl. To him, his mind quieted, his breathing slowed, and then he moved faster than thought itself. His rifle spun in his hands, dropping 2 Vorak mid-air before their claws. Could reach him, he kicked another so hard it slammed into the canyon wall, its armored shell cracking like glass. He wove through them like a shadow, striking with brutal precision, snapping limbs, crushing armor blades in his hands, moving so fast. They hummed in the air. The swarm reacted too slowly by the time the squad realized something was happening. The rear was completely cleared. Vorak bodies littered the ground around Eli, who stood breathing steadily, not a scratch on him. The comms went silent for a moment before someone muttered, "How in the void did he do that?" Eli keyed his comm and said nothing, just rejoined the squad as though nothing unusual had happened. Zorak's eyes locked on him with sharp suspicion after the battle. The Vorak retreated, regrouping for another attack, but the damage was done. Eli had saved the squad that had abandoned him, and every alien there knew it that night in the dim light of the barracks. Zorak approached him, saying, "You fight like no human I have seen before." Eli met his gaze and replied quietly, "Maybe you haven't seen enough humans yet," then walked past, leaving Zorak standing in thought. The ship's AI contacted Eli again in his quarters, saying they are beginning to see. You cannot hide this forever." Eli stared out at the stars beyond the viewport, his reflection staring back in the glass, and for the first time he wondered not if the aliens would find out the truth about him, but what would happen to the galaxy. When they did, Commander Zorak's suspicion had grown into quiet obsession. He could not forget the way Eli Kane had fought on the mining world. The speed, the precision, the sheer force behind each strike. No human he knew could move like that, and so he devised a way to uncover the truth under the pretense of a routine medical check. Every soldier in the 9th Division was ordered to report to the medbay for scans and data updates. Eli complied without argument, sitting in the sterile white chamber as the diagnostic arms of the scanner hummed to life beams of light, sweeping over his body, recording every detail. At first the results appeared normal: heart rate, blood pressure, muscle density, all within acceptable range, but then the genetic report appeared on the display and Zorak's eyes narrowed: human DNA with multiple unknown sequences. Sequences not found in any galactic database. Sequences older than recorded history. Before the med officer could even finish reading the data, the screen flickered and a security lockout sealed the file. The display flashing in red, classified by protocol, 0 origin unknown. Eli sat calmly watching Zorak from the scanner chair, his face unreadable. Zorak dismissed him without a word, but, in his mind, the questions burned hotter than ever later in his quarters. Eli stared at the ceiling, remembering something from long ago, his mother sitting on their porch, under Earth's night sky, telling him stories about the first builders, ancient beings who shaped the stars and forged the first civilizations before vanishing into legend. She had always spoken as if she knew more than she told him, her eyes distant whenever she mentioned their power. He had never believed those were anything More than myths until now, the ship's AI appeared again on his console lines of shifting blue light, forming a voice that said, "They have seen too much. You must be careful." Eli asked, "What am I really?" The AI's response was slow, as if measuring. Its words, "You are human, but not like the others. Your genetic code carries markers from the first builders. You are their descendant. Their design is inside you." The AI paused as if to let the weight of the words sink in. "You have abilities that will grow stronger, and they will fear you for it." Before Eli could ask more, the AI's voice shifted to urgency. Vorak fleet detected massing near the frontier flagship targeted 9th Division. Redeployed orders came quickly and the squad was rushed to the hangar. The Vorak had set a trap. A massive force, feigning retreat, then circling to strike the heart of the fleet. The 9th Division was to board the flagship and reinforce its defense, but as the dropship cut through space toward the target, Eli could feel something wrong. The Vorak would not risk such a direct strike unless they had overwhelming numbers when they landed on the flagship. It was already chaos, corridors littered with debris alarms, wailing walls scorched from plasma. Fire. The Vorak were everywhere, swarming through breach points, their screeches echoing like knives in the air. Zorak led the squad into the thick of battle, their weapons cutting through the first wave, but the swarm kept coming, pressing harder. Forcing them back into the central command chamber, there was no escape. Energy shields were failing power cells near depletion in the chaos. A section of the wall exploded, and the Vorak commander stepped through a massive insectoid with armor, thicker than a tank, its claws dripping with venom. Zorak charged to meet it, but was struck down by a swipe of its massive arm. The reptilian commander fell to the floor, pinned under twisted metal, his weapon out of reach. The Vorak commander raised its claw to finish him, and Eli felt the world slow again, his muscles tensing with the same electric pulse he had felt in the mining colony, but this time stronger, clearer. His vision sharpened. His body felt weightless, his mind locked onto the target, and the power inside him surged like a star about to ignite. Eli Kane moved before thought, before breath, before the Vorak commander's claw could fall. He was already there, his hands gripping the alien's armored limb with impossible strength. The sound of metal cracking under his fingers filled the command chamber. The Vorak shrieked in pain and rage, its claws thrashing, but Eli did not let go with a single motion. He twisted the massive limb until the armor split, and green ichor sprayed across the floor. The other Vorak in the chamber froze for the briefest heartbeat, their alien minds unable to process the blur of motion they had just witnessed. Then Eli was among them, faster than any eye could follow his fists and boots, striking with the force of heavy plasma fire, each impact shattering. Exoskeletons sending bodies crashing into walls, the air hummed with the speed of his movements. The world to him was slow, every enemy advance nothing more than a sluggish ripple. He could step around, he felt the pulse of their movements before. They made them his strikes clean, precise, devastating. The Vorak commander roared, lunging again, but Eli caught it mid-charge, lifted it from the ground, and slammed it into the deck hard enough to dent the metal flooring. The vibration shook dust. From the overhead supports, the alien's armor crumpled under the impact. Eli stood over it, breathing steadily, his eyes glowing faintly with that pale, unnatural light he had hidden for so long. The Vorak swarm hesitated, the room thick with the stench of their fear. They had faced every kind of soldier in the galaxy, but never one like this. Never something that looked human yet fought like a god. One Vorak screamed a shrill alarm call, and the swarm began to retreat, backing away, then turning, to flee through the breach points, abandoning their fallen commander. Eli watched them go, his fists still clenched, his body still thrumming with power. Then he turned to Zorak, who was struggling to free himself from the debris. Eli lifted the twisted metal with one hand, tossing it aside as if it were nothing. The reptilian commander stared at him in silence, his eyes wide with something far from mockery. Zorak finally spoke, his voice low and hoarse. "We thought you were weak. We were wrong." Eli said nothing, Simply offering his hand to pull Zorak up together, they moved to secure the command chamber, the remaining Vorik forces scattering across the flagship as the fleet's reinforcements arrived. The battle was over, the cost high. But the flagship still stood. Word of what had happened spread quickly through the ranks, whispers running from ship to ship. A single human had broken a Vorak legion. The mess hall, the barracks, the hangars all buzzed with the story. The human rookie, the one they mocked, the one they tried to break, had become the soldier they owed their lives to. Some spoke his name with respect, others with fear, but no one spoke of him as weak anymore. Zorak himself walked beside Eli on the way back to the Varkon spear, not as a commander addressing a subordinate, but as an equal. There was no apology in his words, but there was something heavier. You have changed the way they look at you, and perhaps the way they will look at all humans. Eli did not answer because he knew respect was not the end of it. Respect could turn to fear. Fear could turn to orders, and orders could turn to chains. When he returned to his quarters, the ship's AI appeared without preamble, its shifting light forming into patterns more complex than before. It said the galaxy has seen a glimpse of what you are now. They will decide whether to follow you or destroy you. Eli looked at the stars beyond the viewport, and in their cold light, he felt no pride. Only the quiet certainty that what had just happened was only the beginning. News traveled faster than light in the Galactic Defense Fleet, and within hours of the flagship battle, Eli Kane's name was being spoken in mess halls and command decks across 100 ships. The story grew, with each telling some claimed he had fought 100 Vorak alone. Others swore they had seen him stop a plasma bolt with his bare hands. Commanders across the fleet sent encrypted requests to know more about the human rookie, who had turned the tide, but the higher ranks offered no answers. Only silence. Yet silence in the fleet was never empty. It was a sign that decisions were being made in hidden rooms, far from the ears of ordinary soldiers on the Varkon spear. Eli moved through the corridors, feeling the weight of every stare. The ones who once mocked him now stepped aside in silence. Some saluted, others simply watched him pass, their eyes filled with something between awe and caution. Commander Zorak walked, with him more often, now speaking less, but watching more. And in those moments, Eli could feel the reptilian measuring him like a weapon being weighed before battle. One night, the ship's AI appeared on his console without warning, its voice carrying a sharper edge than before. They have begun to plan contingencies. You are no longer simply a soldier. You are a variable that could change the balance of power. Eli leaned forward and asked plainly, what kind of contingencies? The AI's patterns shifted rapidly, as if uncomfortable. Some will want to elevate you, make you a symbol. Others will want to end you before you can become more than a story. Both paths lead to danger. Eli sat back in silence, letting the words sink in. The next day, in the strategy chamber, he overheard two alien officers speaking in low tones. They spoke of a proposal to reassign him to a special command under direct council supervision, a place where he could be monitored, controlled, weaponized. But their voices turned colder when they spoke of another plan, one that involved making sure the human rookie never returned from his next mission that night. As he stared out of his viewport, the AI returned, but this time its voice was urgent. You are not alone. There are others like you scattered across worlds, hidden by time and fear. They are waking up. Eli felt a strange pull in his chest, the thought that somewhere out there others carried the same fire in their blood, others who might already be facing the same dangers. The AI's final words before vanishing were, they will come for Earth when the time is right, and they will not come as allies. The following week, the fleet gathered near the edge of neutral space, preparing for what was officially called a containment maneuver against the Vorak, but the scale of the deployment told a different story. Hundreds of alien warships in tight formation, their weapons primed, their shields resonating with a deep hum. Eli stood on the observation deck as the stars beyond were blotted out by the shapes of ships moving into position, and in that moment he realized the truth. This was not about the Vorak. This was about him, and about Earth. A quiet storm building in the shadows of politics and war. Zorak stepped up beside him, his voice low and even. Whatever happens next, human remember that in war the enemy is not always the one pointing the gun. Eli did not respond. His eyes locked on the endless sea of ships, each one a possible threat. Each one. A reminder that his fight had only just begun somewhere deep in his bones. The dormant fire of the first builders stirred, as if sensing the battles yet to come. And though he had no idea when or where the next strike would fall, he knew it would. Shake the galaxy itself.